House of EdTech, Episode 30.
Hey, this is Tom Murray from the Alliance for Excellent Education, and you are listening to the House of EdTech with Chris Nessie.
This episode of House of EdTech is brought to you by todaysmeet.com. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nessie, and the House of EdTech podcast explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing information you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators like you and have them share their stories. The purpose being, whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. Coming up in this episode, I have my usual segments, the EdTech Thought, my EdTech Recommendation, and of course the House of EdTech VIP. I would like to start by saying that in this episode I am not speaking with Laura Fleming. Schedules are sometimes tough to coordinate, and I wasn't able to actually speak with Laura Fleming before recording this episode. Between her schedule and mine, we had some conflicts, but I will be rescheduling that conversation with Laura. And I do look forward to bringing you a conversation with her about makerspaces and what she does in her library in a future episode. So I apologize if you were looking forward to that, but you can continue to look forward to it. In this episode, though, I will be speaking with Stacey Lindes. She's a technology resource specialist here in New Jersey, and you'll get to hear a little bit more about her and hear what she has to say coming up a little bit later in the episode. But before I get to my featured content, I would like to first say a couple of things. First, I want to give a shout out to my colleague Elvir, who reached out at a recent school faculty meeting event. I forget what it was exactly, but he said he actually found the podcast and started listening recently, and he enjoys the show. And Elvir, thank you for listening. I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool that somebody found it that I work with. The next thing I want to tell you about is Tech It Up, which is the Sharp Classroom Technology Challenge. Sharp reached out to me, and basically Sharp is going to be awarding more than $100,000 worth of classroom technology to K-12 schools across the U.S. as a continued effort to support education technology. This event, again hosted by Sharp, one K-12 accredited school in the United States will win a grand prize of $100,000 worth of state-of-the-art Sharp-branded products for their classrooms, providing their students with a technologically advanced learning experience. Sharp will also be awarding Aquos boards, the interactive display system, to 10 runner-up schools. And I got to tell you real quick, first, there's no sponsorship here. I'm just throwing this in. Aquos boards are awesome. They are basically large, high-definition, flat-screen TVs in 60, 70, 80, and I believe up to 90 inches. And they're just giant touchscreen HD TVs that run, I believe, Windows 7 and Windows 8, and, they'll be updatable, but they have HDMI inputs, and it's a giant touchscreen that looks great in a classroom, looks great in a conference room in a school. And the really cool thing is you don't need to have special software to use the interactive whiteboard concept on these Aquos boards. You can put your smartboard software on there. You could put your any interactive whiteboard software on these and it'll run, as opposed to trying to put, say, smartboard software on another IWB. It will not work and it will not give you the same functionality. These are just giant touchscreen tablets. So they are really cool. In order to enter this challenge, your school just needs to answer 2 questions. I don't know what the questions are, but you have until April 30th, 2015 to enter, and the winner will be announced on or about May 15th. Entries can be submitted online at sharpusa.com/techitup, and Tech It Up is tech-it-up. So that's pretty cool, and I hope you enter, and good luck to you and your school if you are to win this technology. I also found out as I sat down to record this episode that my proposal for TCT 15 has been accepted. So I will be in Philly on June 26th, 2015, right before the ISTE conference, to present my workshop, Stop Curating and Start Creating. And TCT it stands for Tomorrow's Classrooms Today. It's an inaugural conference that is happening the day before ISTE once again, and it's being put on by the Evolving Educators Group from here in New Jersey. And you can find out more information about this conference by going to evolvingeducators.com. And I will obviously link to all of these things, the Sharp contest and the TCT website, in the show notes for this episode. And real quick, I do want to tease something really big that is happening in education podcasting later this year. Really, all I can say is something really cool is going to be happening on or before July 1st of this year. So please be sure you tune into future episodes up until then to find out more information and see what's coming in the world of education podcasting. It's going to be really exciting. And I can tell you right now that the House of EdTech is very happy to be a part of something really cool and something really big. And also, before I get to my conversation with Stacey, I do want to give a special happy birthday shout out to Richie Lindes. This is Stacey's son, and the date that this episode comes out, which is February 22nd, Richie is now 10 years old. So I just want to say happy birthday to you, Richie. Enjoy this episode. I'm glad you enjoy the podcast with Mom. And without further ado, let's get to my conversation with your mom, Miss Stacey Lindes. She's a former first grade teacher who has taught everything from preschool to fifth grade, with the exception of kindergarten, which by her own admission, she leaves to the professionals. Stacey currently works for West-Windsor Plainsboro Regional School District and has been in her current position since 2012. She works in a grade 4-5 Google Apps for Education building and currently is working with a one-to-one learning initiative in the fifth grade. She is part of a 6-person team of amazing educators, facilitators, and integrators. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Stacey.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Well, let's dive right in because I bring you on here for a reason. So before beginning your current role, what were some of the ways you integrated technology in the primary grades as a classroom teacher?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting because my school district started ramping up their technology after I left first grade. Prior to leaving leaving first grade for my current position, I had basically an old school overhead projector, 2 antiquated Mac computers, and whatever devices I could borrow from the media center. And my first grade students would go out to a special for computers once a week. But aside from that, it was whatever I could bring in. And my position was filled by other amazing facilitators, and I used them to help integrate technology in the classroom. So whether it be the document camera, the computers on wheels, those types of things for, projects that we were working on, research, to get my kids using the skills that they were learning in the computer lab and, enhancing the learning that was happening in our classroom.
Now, when you were integrating technology in the first grade classroom, and I come from the perspective of I don't teach elementary school. If I did, I would just be more playing with the kids than teaching them. So that's why I don't do it. So when you integrate technology in with such an early age, is it more you using the technology, or were you able to find ways where your students could use technology in some capacity?
It's a combination. We did have the computers on wheels, so that made it easier for each kid to at least have one device or perhaps share a device depending on how many cows I could get out. And then other times it was me using, software and modeling things for them, finding video resources online and using technology that way. But I didn't have a ceiling mounted projector, so we were still projecting our images on a TV. And like I said, none of that came out of the classroom until I left.
What did they bring in when you left the classroom?
Each classroom was then outfitted with a ceiling mounted projector. And in the building that I was in, the principal and the PTA really worked hard to make sure that every classroom had a smartboard. So when I left the classroom, I left to become what my district and the teachers that I facilitated called a smartboard expert. And I use expert very loosely because I didn't have a smartboard. Many of them didn't know that because I trained over the summer to make it seem like I was the expert. But I was by no means any type of expert when I got my position.
Now, just you can be modest and you can, be proud of what you know.
I'm proud of what I've learned, and I think that it's a testament to how technology is accessible to everyone as long as they take the measures to make it accessible to them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think accessibility is key, and equity is now, a big push, with things like Future Ready and everything that's going on with that. If I understood you correctly, you left the classroom after teaching first grade. Mm-hmm. So before that, that's where you were in maybe third, fourth, or fifth grade. What are some ways that you integrated technology, say, with a fifth grade class?
So prior to first grade, I taught third grade, and I taught third grade for 5 years in a number of buildings. And it was pretty much the same thing. The technology, I didn't change classrooms when I switched from third to first grade. So my technology was exactly the same. Again, shortly after leaving third grade, every third grade classroom was outfitted with a smartboard. And I missed that. I was passed over because I was no longer in third grade. But I continued to just show up to those meetings to learn for myself. And I think that also is what benefited me when I did change my position. Really, it was just a matter of finding ways to get technology in the kids' hands. But at that point, 5 years ago, iPads were not in every classroom. Like I said, we didn't have smartboards in every classroom, although that's certainly where the building that I was in headed towards. But I'm in a 10 building district. So even there, the equity is a bit, it's not equal. Let's just put it that way.
I understand where you're coming from, but now this makes me wonder if you were to ever leave your current position where your reach is much further than one classroom, what do you think your school would get overall if you left your position, since that seems to be the pattern?
I'm not sure. And it's interesting because I'm no longer in the same building. And for the past 2 years when I was facilitating smartboard usage in classrooms, I was facilitating the entire district, so the entire K-12 population, all 10 buildings. So I could be in a high school classroom one day and the next day be in kindergarten or first grade. It would really depend on the needs of the teachers, the projects that they were working on with their students, the needs of the building. Like I said, when I left my building, they all got smartboards. So I was there a lot just facilitating them, getting them caught up on the type of technology that they were using, making sure that they were using it with their kids and not demonstrating it for their kids. Smartboards have that wonderful slippery slope of being used by the teacher because it's such an expensive piece of equipment that they're afraid to, give the kid the pen, let them touch the board.
I think that can go one of two ways, where it's the really shiny object in the classroom and nobody uses it because even the teachers are afraid, or like what you're saying, it's very teacher dependent, and I forget who, I was just saying this recently to somebody, that the best smartboard lesson you typically see is by the person who comes in from Smartboard or some smart affiliated company, and they do a smartboard lesson for you. That's typically the best lesson you see. I think it's really tough to find people who do it that well. They're out there, but they're far and few between, I think.
And I think part of what I hoped was that, the kids would be using the software, because one of the things that Smart does well is create amazing software. And for a while there, I was trying to get teachers to use it, even if they didn't have a smartboard, either by using a wireless mouse, and then Smart got savvy and they kind of took that ability away. But last year I worked in a third grade classroom with a very progressive teacher who loves her technology and loves having kids use myriad resources that are tech-based. And we spent lots of time on the cows that had, smart technology on it so that the kids could create projects and present their own projects. Instead of the teacher being up at the board, the kids were now creating content and presenting that content and having their classmates come up and use the board. So they've truly became teachers in their project presentation. And it was really amazing to see little 8 and 9-year-olds up there doing what so many adults have difficulty doing.
That is really good to see, because a lot of teachers are afraid to say, I don't know. And I tell teachers all the time, learn with your students. bring them up, play with the tools, whether it's a smart board or a document camera or, the iPad or some other handheld device. Play with the tools with your students because they can teach you a thing or two. And, it should be more like a community of learners.
Absolutely. And, I always tell them the kids aren't afraid to explore because they come from a world where things aren't quite as mechanical. So they're willing to touch and manipulate things in a way that most adults can be kind of hesitant about.
Well, we were talking before we hit the record button. I have my 3-year-old who he loves the iPad and he can do more things on it than I can. And then I remind myself, well, Steve Jobs at one point said, I designed these things so a 2-year-old could operate them. So it's right up their alley to just touch and explore and, tap.
That's exactly it. And they're fearless when it comes to that type of technology.
Now, before we stray too far off the technology path, let's well, I'm the host, so I'll bring this back in. Based on your experiences, what made moving out of the classroom into your current role the move for you? Because obviously, well, I'll let you answer. I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
So it wasn't anything that I was really looking for. Truth be told, I was quite content teaching first grade. Moving from third to first was kind of difficult. That was a bit of a transition for me. But then, like anything that I find myself doing, I'm in it in the moment. And I try to make it my passion. And once it's not my passion, then it's time to move on. But that wasn't the case with first grade. I really liked my little kids. My first graders, I learned a lot with them, and I learned a lot from them. And I really felt that I became a better teacher watching them grow. You don't get to see the type of growth in third and fourth and fifth grade that you see in a first grade classroom. It's just phenomenal. So I was approached by someone who said, hey, there's this position available. Have you thought about it? And quite honestly, I hadn't. I knew it was available because, like I said, I'd been attending the workshops that were SMART related, and the position that was available was that SMART position. And I thought about it. I discussed it at home. I discussed it with my principal. I discussed it with a select few colleagues, and then I just applied. And I figured, worst case scenario, I get to stay in a job that I love. And if that's really the worst case scenario, then we should all be fortunate to have those worst case scenarios. And best case scenario, I get to explore and do something new and different.
Now, real quick, you've been in the same district for 10 years where you taught first grade?
No, this is my 8th year there.
Okay, younger kids you've taught, what grade are they in now? Have you been in the district where you see them now that they're in high school, or?
When I first started teaching, I taught 3rd grade. Those kids are now juniors in high school. And what's kind of cool is, in my old position, when I was doing SMART, being in the K-12, I got to see them in the hallway, and a couple of them were just shocked that I was working with their teachers now. And it's just kind of cool to bring it full circle. And when I taught 3rd grade, I was in a K-3 building, so they'd graduate and they would come back on half days or whatever, but you never see them again, really. And it was just kind of neat to see them grow. Like I said, working with their teachers in their classrooms at the times that they're there was really kind of amazing for me.
I'm sure that's a very special thing for you to see.
It is.
You're in a building where you are currently in the midst of a one-to-one initiative with, I'm imagining, Google Chromebooks. Talk about what it takes to go Google, and even possibly what you might do differently in doing a one-to-one initiative.
So it's interesting because I was brought into a technology committee before we went Google. So I was part of the committee that decided that we were going to go one-to-one, and eventually that Chromebooks would be the device that we'd use. I will say, though, that my district is kind of device agnostic in that at the K-5 level, we're MacBooks and iPads. At 4-5, we're a little bit of Chrome. Kids get their Google accounts when they're in 3rd grade, although not all teachers are using them. That's new for this year. And then starting middle school, they're PC and Google. So it's kind of all over the place. But I think that it gives everyone the ability to be aware of what's out there and not married to a device.
I think that's a great concept. I mean, I spoke in an earlier episode with Tom Murray. It doesn't matter. It's not about the tool. It's about what you do with your curriculum and how the tools support the learning. So right. I think that's a great example, in your own district where they're exposed to so much, where some districts are, they're in bed with Microsoft and, that's all it is.
So you mentioned Tom Murray, and it's funny because a lot of what you guys were talking about and being device agnostic and it being about the pedagogy and the instruction and TPAC and SAMR, those sound like those meetings that I took part in initially. Right. So listening to that made me think about how it really is about instruction. It's not about device, right? It could be any device in any classroom. And it's really, what are you doing with the device? How is it really kind of helping your lesson? If that
exactly.
makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I made the point in that conversation about, when you look at curriculum, it's not about, the textbook from Pearson or McDougall. It's about the enduring understandings, the objectives. You can get any textbook to support your curriculum, but is your curriculum solid? So your lesson can be about anything. Is it a solid lesson, and technology enhances that instruction and learning for your kids? So I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. And like I said, when I listened to that, I really felt like I was sitting in that room with, the 5 other facilitators, myself and my director, and we were just having the same conversation that you and Tom were having that day.
When I did that conversation, I imagined that it was me, Tom, and President Obama talking about technology, but Barack didn't want to chime in. So
I envisioned Congress. So there you go.
Yeah. Now with your one-to-one program, it's Chromebooks, right?
Yes. So our one-to-one program right now, I facilitate 5th grade, and I have a counterpart in our other 4-5 building. And then there are 2 other facilitators in the 2 middle schools who are facilitating 6th grade right now. So our rollout, that was your original question, was like, what would we do differently? So we started with a pilot program last year. We were in 8 5th grade classrooms as part of our pilot. I had nothing to do with that except to observe and kind of see things, but I wasn't the facilitator at the time for that. Like I said, I was doing SMART. And this year we rolled it out all 5th grade, all 6th grade. And then next year it will be all of 7th grade. And my colleagues and I are actually planning our PD day for the 7th grade teachers and some of the support staff and special area teachers who didn't have Google training last year, to help them integrate that technology into their daily routine. And then the following year it'll be 8th grade.
Now, based on what you just said, that brings me to another point about the program. When you design these professional development opportunities, how do you support the teachers in their learning? Because if teachers don't like change, we're creatures of habit. We both know that. How do you support teachers?
So part of it is, well, I guess I'll go back. So what we did last year, prior to the rollout, was we had a PD day in January. This year it'll be in February. It goes with a holiday at the time. And that was for all 5th grade teachers. And then over the summer, we paid those same 5th grade teachers, 5th and 6th grade. And we paid those teachers to come back in the summer for training. And then our model continues that there is one person in each building that is one-to-one. And we facilitate that way, either through morning shares, which are kind of like your Wired Wednesday, come and discuss this. What are you doing? Because I am in one building and I work primarily with 5th grade, although I do support 4th grade and their Google Apps for Education, just they don't have a one-to-one initiative. I work with the teachers there on projects that they want to explore, activities that they want to explore, lesson plan development. And I'm not the only person doing that, which is really nice. There are 3 of us who are Google Apps for Education. One person is iPads in the building and other touch technology, so he took over the SMART piece. And then the 6th facilitator is at the high school doing a one-to-one /BYOD pilot.
Now, you and I were both excited about technology and integrating it and using it, and we're both bitten by that tech bug. And when you work with teachers and you're doing professional development and you're doing these sessions, when you're talking about observations in Danielson or Marzano or, pick your poison, teachers don't get excited. Do you find that teachers are more excited about technology, or is it, same old, why are we doing this? What are your experiences with that?
I think it's a true combination of both. You have teachers who are very enthusiastic about their technology, They like to explore. They don't mind failing. They don't mind falling flat on their face. I do have teachers who struggle with the idea that it's new technology. Why are we doing this? And if they can't see why, if they don't understand the elevator speech or the mission, we do have a mission, then I think that their buy-in, and I hate that word, but their buy-in is non-existent. And then their kids suffer because then they don't bring their devices out, or the device only comes out when they're keyboarding and writing something for, writing workshop, or if they're drafting an essay or doing something like that. But it's not anything that's truly thought-provoking and goes beyond, using it as a word processor.
So if we can be fancy. If we're talking SAMR, they're not getting past S.
Yeah, there's nothing beyond substitution for some of them. And you know what? At this point, because we're still so new in this program, I mean, this is considered year one. Substitution for many of them is a step in the right direction, because I'd rather see substitution than their Chromebook just collect dust or stay in its sleeve all day and nothing happen with it.
And there are, I have friends, I have one specific friend who's in a school where this is, I think, year 2 of a Chromebook initiative. There are still teachers who, that they don't encourage use of the Chromebooks, and they haven't incorporated it into instruction at all. And that's a damn shame on so many levels. That hurts the kids most of all. And, we agree on that. But speaking of students, when you're out and about in your district, what is the reaction you see from students who are using technology?
I was walking down the hallway one day and one student said, "When are you going to come back and finish that project with us?" And, that felt really good. Or, working with another teacher where I introduced Glogster to her class. And then the next project that they did, they were able to choose the application for their content creation. The teacher came up to me and said, "So I just wanted to let you know, she decided she was going to do a glog. She really liked Glogster." We had about 3 people who went that route, and then others kind of went the more traditional Google Slides route, which, is fine. For me, it's just a matter of exposure and seeing what's out there. You can't see everything that's out there, but exposure to the good things that are out there gives people choice. And I think that that's important.
Choice is very important. As long as, and again, there would be nothing wrong with it, but if you have the option to choose between Google Slides or Glogster or, Prezi or some digital medium, but you're stopping the offering of, let's do a poster board or, a science fair trifold. It's all about exposure. And I do like to see that. And I try to encourage that too. So that's good to see.
Yeah. And it's nice because I think that, this week, actually, I was supposed to work with her today. I'm working with a teacher, and we are going to be doing Glogster. And she told me, I really have some kids who just want to make a poster. They don't understand why we have to make it digital. And, I feel for those kids because, it doesn't always have to be digital all the time. I look at the things that I like to do. Sometimes I really like to write. And it's funny because, being in my position, everyone can, thinks that I'm just going to be all about the tech. And sometimes, I'll walk into a classroom and I have a notebook in my hand and there's no technology. Maybe I have my phone just so that I can make it, an appointment on my calendar. But, I do like to write things down physically. There's just something in that helps. And, for those kids who wanted to create that poster, I hope that there are opportunities. But this particular project just is, to learn this tool so that later they have more choices.
And that's a great strategy because it's not so much about the product so much as learning how to use the tool. We do that in woodshop. Let's learn how to use a hammer and drill press. Let's learn how to do different pieces of software and different applications. I think that's fantastic, which will bring us to the part of the show where I say recommend thousands of tools for everybody to go and use. So really just, real quick, take a couple of minutes or however long you want, and let's rattle off 10, 30, 40 tools that you love to recommend to teachers.
10, 30, 40 tools that I love to recommend to teachers.
You can knock one off because you recommended Glogster already. So
right. So Glogster has been a big project of mine because my school has a license and not everybody was using it. So it was something that I had to learn. And in that learning process, I became certified. So that was kind of cool. I am very fond of the Google Apps for Education, although I can't wrap my head around sites. But we'll see. We'll figure that one out one day. It hurts me when people send me things in Word documents and Excel, and then I see that bouncing down in my doc, and I'm like, I don't understand why, if we are a Google Apps for Education school, we aren't all using Google. And it's funny because it took me a really long time to embrace Google. I am one of those teachers who doesn't just jump in whole hog, or
you can't be afraid of that. I myself jump in and it looks like I'm drowning at times, but I'm having a great time.
And it's not even that I don't want to. It's just that I do like to explore and kind of see the value in things. You know, I have found that if you are playing in too many sandboxes, you're just making a big mess.
I'm guilty of being a mess maker then.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. But I have also found that sometimes some teachers can find themselves a little overwhelmed, and then they back off completely. And that's definitely not something that I want to happen.
That might be because they turn their sandbox into a litter box, and well, that is messy. And who wants to be there? Exactly.
That's exactly it. So other things, I'm a fan of Kaizena. One of the critiques that we heard from the teachers is, I can no longer give authentic feedback because really who has time to comment that way? And so Kaizena is one of those things where, you can leave a quick audio note, or if you want to, type some text out, and or even, link up to a video either that you've created or something that's going to reinforce learning that's taking place or misunderstandings that are in the Google Doc that you're using Kaizena on. Another extension that I love is One Tab. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people who has a million open tabs in Chrome, and One Tab kind of neatens that stuff up.
What exactly does it do? I think I don't want to guess, but go ahead, explain it.
So I'm one of those clickers on Twitter, or if I see a suggestion, then I just open all of my tabs. Same thing with email, because I'm a big proponent of inbox zero. So instead of having something in my inbox, I'll have a million tabs. So you click on the One Tab app extension icon, and it literally takes all of your tabs and puts them into one tab.
I guess that's as simple as it gets.
That's as simple as it gets. Another extension that I like is Stay Focused. It's something that I'm considering putting out there to the parents in my building, but I'm a little leery because...
You don't want to insult them?
It's not even that. It's I don't want their kids to get blocked out of sites that teachers want them to use. But what Stay Focused does is it gives you a time limit, 10 to 20 minutes. You set the time limit. I think the default is 10 minutes. And once your time expires, it's nearly impossible to get back in. You have to there are two settings. You can continue to click all of these windows that open and say, that are reminding you about your procrastination and good decision making and why you're using this extension. Or you can type in this extremely hard paragraph that kind of belittles you about your procrastination, and you're not allowed to make any errors or you have to start over.
See, now we're on a podcast, so people can't see my face, but I think I've heard about an extension like this, or this particular one on another podcast I listened to.
Yes, that 5 a.m. Miracle, right? That's the one you recommended.
Yes, he Jeff Sanders had the guy who created the
yes.
extension on. Okay.
And I use it, and I will tell you, there are cheats and ways around it, but they wouldn't work in our classrooms because we don't have in mode, but I do know how to cheat. I stay focused.
Do you cheat your Stay Focused?
Only when I'm home, when I don't have to be focused.
Okay. That's awesome. Any other, since you're a Google App school, any other cool Chrome extensions that you'd like to share for teachers or for students?
One thing that I've had a lot of fun doing with my teachers, and it's something that's really gotten into their classrooms, is Blogger and creating a blog with the kids. And what's really cool about that is it's an extension of the conversation that takes place in the classroom. And that's how a lot of the teachers are using it. So it will be, we don't have time for that. Put it on a Post-it and I'll write a post about it. And then you guys can write about it and share your ideas that way. So it's a nice way for them to continue the conversations that don't always get to carry on beyond, the time frame of the lesson or the period that they're in.
Are you finding that more of your teachers are blogging? Are they getting their students to blog? What's happening?
Some teachers are getting their students to publish their work via Google Sites. Others are maintaining a classroom blog, whether it be centered around specific content area like math, science, social studies, or reading. Others are focusing on, just one post a day, one post a week. And like I said, just kind of getting content out there to their kids to extend the conversation. They're not really blogging in the way that you and I might blog, to share resources or to give advice or those types of things. And really for me, it's just a highlight of what I've done with my teachers for the week. And because, they're not always tooting their own horn either. So someone needs to toot the horn for them. And I have no shame in doing that because really the work that we do together is their work that they're bringing to their kids. So, if I can say, so-and-so fifth grade teacher had a Google Hangout with a classroom from Virginia, and it was a mystery hangout. Isn't that a great idea? 3 other teachers might say, hey, that is a great idea. And that's a great way to, expand beyond the 4 walls of our classroom, extend the geography lessons that we're working on, grow globally. And, so that's been really successful. One of the things that we've really focused on too this year is Twitter. And that was, my group and I, we worked together to create a Tweet 10 challenge, which was really for teachers just to become familiar with Twitter. It wasn't 10 days. It was supposed to take them 10 minutes per day. And we did it for a week. And, just to familiarize themselves with what Twitter is, what you can gain from Twitter. And what's really nice is a lot of them are going back. And, we're now 2 or 3 weeks out of the challenge. They're still signing up. And they're still saying, hey, I signed up. I'm still getting, direct messages. That was the last challenge. And, I finished my challenge. Send me my badge because that was what they were supposed to get, a badge and a sticker.
Maybe the next competition and challenge could be about introducing teachers to really awesome education podcasts.
That is actually in draft on my on the blog that I have with my group.
So Stacey and I have just had a piece of conversation that we took out of the interview. So Stacey has been kind enough to take some time out here depending on when this airs. Today was the day of the blizzard that wasn't here in 2015. So Stacey, I want to thank you for taking time to be here on the podcast. And before I let you go, how can the listeners get in touch with you to pick your brain about, Google or other apps or just to connect and be a part of the PLN?
The best way to reach me is on Twitter. I'm at iRunTech, not because I run tech, but because I run and I do tech. And they can reach me at my email, which is stacy.lindes@wwprsd.org.
Very cool. And we didn't get to touch on it too much today, Stacey, but people can also reach you at about 5:30 in the morning for BFC 530, which,
yes,
depending on when this airs, I will have been doing for months.
Yeah, that would be great. You've been a great addition to the PLN. I love Breakfast Club. It's good.
It's been a nice addition to my mornings between socks and hair gel.
Socks and hair gel. Interesting. Yeah, I love that it's just a 15-minute chat, one topic, and it's pretty quick.
If you haven't checked out BFC 530, join Stacey and I some morning. How about tomorrow?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Stacey, thank you again for being here, and I will most certainly have you on again. And since you're in New Jersey, I look forward to seeing you at more conferences in the near future.
Sounds great, Chris. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you again, Stacey. I really appreciate you being on the show. And if you haven't checked out the Breakfast Club 530 chat on Twitter, definitely come check it out. Say good morning to me. Say good morning to Stacey. It's really cool. If you're in the East Coast time zone, definitely hit us up at 530. Or if you're somewhere in a different time zone, find the appropriate 530 for you. Very cool. And before I get to my EdTech thought in this episode, I do want to take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, today'smeet.com. Definitely head over to Today's Meet if you're interested in adding back channeling to your classroom. Perhaps your school doesn't allow you to use something like Twitter. Today's Meet is a great alternative and utilizes the same 140 character concept to creating short messages that allow you to create a private, secure community for you and your students of really any grade level. Students don't need to sign up. You can create rooms that last an hour or even up to a year, and you can start a chat room that your students can participate in. And if you want to go the extra mile with Today's Meet, they now offer teacher tools for, I believe, $5 a month, where you get to save your chat transcripts. You have a little bit more moderation control over what's going on. And just to play and add the concept of back channeling to your classroom can be really engaging for your students and for you. It's really great for the shy student, and it's something that I highly encourage you to check out. If you're interested, head over to today'smeet.com/House of EdTech for more information. And thank you to Today's Meet for sponsoring this episode. And now for my EdTech thought, which I have titled, Try Something New. And it's really quite that simple. I want you to try something new in technology and education, anything at all. Perhaps something you've heard me recommend in any of the previous episodes. Or if you want to hit a nice big list, go back and check out episode number 26, which was the first ever House of EdTech Smackdown, which I did to finish out 2014. I'll include links to the show notes from that episode, and you can see the list that all the contributors and people, what they shared. What I'm asking you to do is let me know what you try, and let me know what you're using it for, and report back to me. Send me a tweet using the hashtag House of EdTech, or send me an email. Try something new. You listen to this podcast. Hopefully you're trying new things in technology, but I'm really looking to get your feedback and find out what you're doing and what you're trying that's unique and adding new value to your classroom for your students. So that's your homework. And also, that's my EdTech thought. Try something new. Okay, this episode's recommendation comes to you courtesy of Lisa Nielsen. She is the Innovative Educator, and she can be found at theinnovativeeducator.blogspot.com. And she recently wrote a post titled 5 Ways to Use Social Media as a Time Saver at Work. I couldn't agree with this post more, which I will link to in its entirety in the show notes. But basically, she writes about how she uses social media to save her time. So the 5 ways that Lisa writes about are, number 1, to bookmark spaces. By bookmarking spaces, you create a bookmark folder for all your commonly used social media spaces and have a separate window for them and your email. When you check your email, click along the browser tabs and take a look at your social media spaces too. Having this bookmarked saves you time from having to think about which spaces to look at. And checking when you check your email results in not having to worry if you're keeping up. Number 2, you can foster natural leadership in your groups. When you're in these groups, if you've done your job well as a community leader, a natural leadership group can emerge, and participants start instigating topics and agendas, and people often begin shaping and assuming ownership of community norms. Participants will start finding their niches as follows. You can be a nurturer, a responder, a pusher, or a sharer. You can read more in detail on the blog post on Lisa's site about what all those mean. Number 3, you can see paradigm changes from quote-unquote person as expert to quote-unquote group as expert. If you do a good job, you can change the paradigm of a person as an expert to group as an expert. Rather than sending and tracking emails to multiple people who may know answers, you share them in a group. This saves the asker time because there is a large audience, and the traditional askees time because participants realize there is a whole community of knowledge out there. A really great way to do this, in addition to doing email, is to utilize a tool like Voxer and have a Voxer group chat with people that you value and are connected with. I'm a member of a number of Voxer groups, and if you're not on Voxer, you should really check it out. And you can also connect with me, and I'll mention my Voxer username later in the episode. But Voxer is a real easy way to do that, and I think there's something to be said for listening to someone's voice as opposed to just reading their words. So that's one way to do that. Number 4, when you get a potential frequently asked question, blog about it. When Lisa is asked a question, she answers it, but she does so in a way that can help others. For example, where she works, schools will soon have the option to allow students to use their own devices for learning. That resulted in a lot of questions for Lisa, and rather than just sending out answers to just one person, she wrote many blog posts. And there are a lot of people out there that do this. People ask you questions, share it. That's something I'm hoping to do more with this podcast as I start and continue to receive questions from you. I can turn those questions into blog posts, and more importantly, I can turn those questions into content and future episodes. And the last way, the number 5 way, and these aren't ranked, but the 5th way that Lisa talks about using social media for saving you time at work. She says you can find a world of experts on any topic if you have literacy in using Twitter, which she also calls Twitteracy. Just know the right hashtags and how to find experts, and you have the world's best knowledge at your fingertips, at your computer, or even on your phone or mobile device. It is better than any Rolodex, allowing you to connect anytime, anywhere, with the interested parties who are available to you now and who you're connected with. And Lisa just finishes this up by saying that these are just some of the ways that social media can make you more productive at work. If you have other ways, please share them with me, and also reach out to Lisa. And I do want to thank Lisa for allowing me to share her content in this episode of the House of EdTech. So if you have feedback or questions, get in touch with me, and also share your thoughts on this post with Lisa, which again I will share in the show notes for this episode. And that's my EdTech recommendation. And now for the House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to Angela Watson. Angela is an educational consultant and instructional technology coach based in Brooklyn, New York. Angela's greatest passion is helping teachers develop strong classroom management and a positive mindset so they can truly enjoy their work. On her website, thecornerstoneforteachers.com, she shares free teaching articles, lesson ideas, and activities, classroom photos, printable forms and posters, and much more. Angela has also published 2 books, the first, titled The Cornerstone, Classroom Management That Makes Teaching More Effective, Efficient, and Enjoyable, and she's also the author of Awakened, Change Your Mindset to Transform Your Teaching. I'll link to both of those in the show notes if you want to check them out and support Angela. And Angela is also the host of one of my new favorite podcasts titled Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. Check out her podcast, check out her site, and also connect with Angela through a number of social media outlets. You can follow Angela on Twitter. Her username is Angela_Watson, and that's WATSON. You can also follow Angela on Pinterest, and of course, check out her website, thecornerstoneforteachers.com. Links to all of that are in the show notes. And congratulations, Angela. You are a House of EdTech VIP. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the House of EdTech, sponsored by Today's Meet. For information about how you can add back-channeling to your classroom, be sure to check out todaysmeet.com/houseofedtech. Before I give you the usual closing information, I do invite you to stick around after I close out this episode for a little bonus content. After I finished my conversation with Stacey, we had a little audio fun with the power of Skype and soundboards. So we had a funny moment, and I just need to, I felt like I should share that. So stick around after the closing, and you can hear a little excerpt from the post-interview conversation that I had with Stacey. And there's actually another special guest that sort of made an appearance here on the podcast, so stick around for that. So to close this out, please keep the conversation going and visit my website, chrisnessy.com. Over there, you can review the show notes for this episode. And again, this is episode number 30. I would love your thoughts and feedback on the content and resources shared in this episode. So you can comment on the show notes, or you can email me. The email address is feedback@chrisnessy.com. And you can also submit audio feedback by calling the House of EdTech listener feedback line. The number 732-903-4869. And you can also send audio to me through Voxer. My username is cnessy4602. And connect with me on Twitter. My username is Mr. Nessy, MrNESI, and just use the hashtag House of EdTech so I can see your tweets. If you enjoyed the House of EdTech, and I don't know why you wouldn't, please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Your 5-star ratings and positive reviews will help keep the show front and center for others to discover and enjoy. And you can also show your support by visiting patreon.com/houseofedtech. Thank you to Jeff Herb, who's a patron of the show. Your support and contribution help me do what I do. And if you'd like to help that as well, head over to patreon.com/houseofedtech for more information. On the next episode, I will be speaking with Katrina Keene from teachandtechgal.com, and that episode is scheduled to be released on March 8th, 2015. So I'm looking forward to sharing that conversation with you in a couple of weeks. As always, thank you for listening. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. All right, real quick, thank you for sticking around through the whole episode to check out this little bit of bonus content. When I was done talking with Stacey, I do a little post-interview conversation to kind of decompress after we have our chats about technology and whatnot here on the show. And in this post-conversation, I also had a special guest, virtually, sorta, kinda. I spoke with the Hulkster, Hulkamania himself, Hulk Hogan, and I'd like to share that little conversation with you all right now. And there's nothing after that, so I'll see you in a couple weeks. And now for my next guest, I'm going to talk to Hulk Hogan about technology. How you doing, Hulk?
Hey, brother. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great, Hulk.
Hey, man, let's go out tonight.
You know, I don't think that's really going to work for me.
Listen, I'm serious. I want to take you out.
Really? What would happen?
I'll break you in half like a little toothpick.
Oh, you want to know what I would... Yeah, I would be a wrestler if I wasn't a teacher.
So, you want to be a wrestler?
Would you really?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, okay.
I just saw it as a button on here.
Vince doesn't have any more plans for you.
That's
okay, I've digressed too much. I'm having too much fun.
Nothing wrong with fun.